In the small, vibrant village of Ife, nestled between lush hills and winding rivers, lived a young woman named Dorcas. Ife was a place where beauty was highly regarded, and the length of a woman's hair was considered the ultimate symbol of her worth. The longer and thicker a woman's hair, the more admired she was by the people, especially the men. Dorcas, however, was different. Since she was a little girl, she had struggled with alopecia, a condition that caused her hair to fall out in patches, leaving her with sparse, short strands that never grew beyond her scalp. While the other girls in the village had long, flowing hair, Dorcas's hair never seemed to grow, and she was often teased for it. Despite her intelligence and kindness, Dorcas felt invisible. She would watch her friends with their beautiful hair, walking proudly through the village, while she kept to herself, feeling ashamed of her appearance. The village men never paid her any attention because her beauty, it seemed, was defined by something she couldn't change. Dorcas's heart ached with every passing day as she noticed how the men's eyes would wander to the girls with the thick, shiny hair. She wished more than anything that she could be like them, that her hair would grow and she could feel beautiful in the same way. But no matter how much she hoped, things remained the same. She had tried different herbs and concoctions, but nothing had worked. One evening, Dorcas sat on a bench, staring into the distance, her thoughts filled with longing. Just then, an elderly woman approached from the path leading to the village. Her name was Ya, and she was known far and wide as a healer with deep knowledge of herbs and magic. Ya stopped before Dorcas and looked at her with kind, knowing eyes. "You have been troubled, child," she said softly. "I can see the sadness in your heart." Dorcas looked up in surprise, wiping away a tear that had unknowingly fallen down her cheek. "I just want to be like the other women," Dorcas replied, her voice barely a whisper. "I want my hair to grow so that I can feel seen, loved, and beautiful." Ya smiled gently. "I know of a way, Dorcas, a potion that can make your hair grow thick and long, but remember, beauty lies not just in what we see with our eyes, but in what is inside our hearts. Be careful what you wish for." Dorcas's heart raced at the thought of finally achieving the beauty she had always desired. Without hesitation, she nodded. "I will do anything to have the hair I've always dreamed of." Ya dipped her hand into her bag and handed her a small vial of liquid, shimmering in the fading light of the day. "Tonight before you sleep, apply this potion to your scalp, and your hair will grow beyond your wildest dreams." Dorcas took the vial in her hands, feeling a mix of excitement and doubt. That night, Dorcas stood in front of her mirror, staring at her reflection, her bald head reminding her of the beauty she lacked. She hesitated for a moment, thinking of Ya's words. Beauty lies not just in what we see with our eyes, but in what is inside our hearts. But the pull of vanity, of finally feeling like she belonged, was too strong. She unscrewed the vial and poured the potion onto her hands. With a deep breath, Dorcas began to gently massage the potion into her scalp. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer, silently wishing for the hair she had always dreamed of. By morning, Dorcas woke to a shocking transformation. Her hair had grown overnight into thick, long, dark tresses. It cascaded down her back in waves, shimmering as it caught the first rays of the sun. Dorcas gasped as she ran her fingers through it. It was soft, full, and alive with beauty. She stood there for a long moment, gazing at her reflection, hardly believing the change. The young woman who had once felt invisible now stared back at her, a vision of beauty. Dorcas rushed out of her house, eager to show the village what had happened. She walked through the dirt path that led to the center of Ife, her long hair swishing behind her like a curtain of silk. The villagers stopped in their tracks as she passed, their eyes wide with amazement. Whispers followed her every step, and she couldn't help but smile with pride as she caught the looks of admiration from the men. For the first time in her life, Dorcas felt truly seen. As Dorcas walked through the village, she caught sight of Kofi, the young man who had once been her close friend. He stood by the market stall, his head turned in her direction. The moment their eyes met, his face softened with recognition. Dorcas approached him, her heart racing as she felt the attention of the entire village on her. She smiled brightly at Kofi. "Kofi," she said, her voice light, "how do you like my new hair?" Kofi gave her a polite smile. "It looks very beautiful, Dorcas," he said, his voice lacking the usual cheerfulness. "You look different, like someone I hardly know." Dorcas's smile faltered for a brief moment, but she quickly masked it with a confident laugh. "Well, sometimes things change," she said, tossing her hair with a flick of her head. "I guess you'll get used to it." Kofi didn't respond, but his gaze shifted elsewhere. Dorcas stood there for a moment longer, her smile fading as she realized that Kofi, the one person who had always treated her with kindness, seemed cold towards her. She now had everything she had dreamed of: long, beautiful hair, the admiration of the villagers, and yet there was a strange feeling inside her. Dorcas's thoughts drifted back to Yah's words, "Be careful what you wish for." The days passed, and Dorcas's newfound beauty only seemed to grow more pronounced. She couldn't walk through the village without feeling eyes on her, the men admiring her long, thick hair, and the women whispering among themselves. The attention was intoxicating. For the first time, Dorcas felt powerful, desired, and admired by everyone around her. Soon, something began to shift within her. The more attention she received, the more proud she became. Her once close friendships with some women in the village began to break up. She no longer had time for her friends. Instead, she spent hours admiring herself in the mirror, perfecting her appearance, making sure her hair looked just right. One afternoon, while walking through the village market, Dorcas saw Agatha. They had been friends for a long time, and while Dorcas would always complain about her lack of hair, Agatha was always reassuring her of her beauty, intelligence, and kindness, which mattered more than anything else. She had been ignoring Agatha for some days, while basking in the attention that her new hair brought her. Now she felt a strange coldness between them, like a wall that had suddenly been built. She walked up to Agatha, her hair swishing behind her as she flashed a smile. "Do you need help with your work today?" she asked, her tone light but laced with a hint of superiority. "No, Dorcas, I'm fine. I've got it covered," she said, her voice polite but distant. She quickly turned back to work, avoiding her gaze. Dorcas felt a pang of hurt, but she masked it with a laugh. "Well, if you change your mind, I'll be around," she said, before walking away, tossing her hair over her shoulder. But as she walked through the market, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. Agatha's warmth had vanished, replaced by an indifference that stung deeply. The more Dorcas thought about it, the more she realized that her beauty, which had brought her so much attention, had created a distance between her and the people who truly mattered. As the weeks went by, the loneliness she had once felt due to her alopecia began to resurface. But it was different now. She had what she thought would bring her joy, but it hadn't. Dorcas realized she had become consumed by vanity, and in the process, she had lost the very things that made her who she was: the connections to the people she loved, the simple pleasures of life, and most painfully, the respect of her friends, Kofi and Agatha. One afternoon, Dorcas found herself walking toward the fields on the edge of the village. She had no real purpose in mind, just a desire to escape the constant stares and whispers. She had become someone she didn't recognize, someone driven by appearances, someone distant from the people who truly cared about her. As she wandered the path near the fields, she spotted Kofi working alone, harvesting grain. He didn't notice her at first. Dorcas stopped in her tracks, watching him from a distance. The sight of him stirred something deep inside her, something she had buried beneath the layers of pride and beauty she had built around herself. Without thinking, Dorcas walked toward him. The sound of her footsteps on the dirt path broke the quiet, and Kofi looked up. For a moment, there was silence between them. His eyes met hers, but there was no smile, no warmth in them, just a quiet acknowledgement of her presence. I wanted to help you today," Dorcas said softly, her voice breaking the stillness. "I know I've been distant, but I can't keep pretending like everything is fine." Kofi paused and set down his sickle. "You don't have to pretend, Dorcas," Kofi replied, his voice low and steady. "I've seen how you've changed. You've become someone else. I don't know if the Dorcas I once knew is still here." Dorcas's heart twisted in her chest. She had become someone else, hadn't she? She had become the woman the village admired for her beauty, but she had lost the very thing that had made her whole, her true self. "I'm sorry, Kofi," she whispered, the words slipping from her lips before she could stop them. "I let the attention and the beauty consume me. I pushed you away, and I didn't even realize how much I needed you." Kofi looked at her for a long moment, as if weighing her words. Slowly, he stepped closer, his gaze softening. "Dorcas, beauty isn't just about what's on the outside. It's about who you are inside. I cared for you because of your heart, not because of your hair." Dorcas's throat tightened as she fought to hold back the tears. Kofi was right. She had spent so much time chasing something external, something that didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Her hair, her beauty, it had never been what mattered most to him, and it shouldn't have been what mattered most to her. "I was wrong," she said, her voice trembling. "I thought beauty would make me happy, but now I see that it's only made me more lonely." Kofi nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "It's not too late to find your way back, Dorcas. You're still you, no matter what's on the outside." For the first time in weeks, Dorcas felt something inside her shift. She didn't need the long hair or the admiration of the villagers to feel whole. She needed to reconnect with the people who truly loved her for who she was. And most of all, she needed to reconnect with herself. She spent the following mornings in quiet reflection, considering the choices she had made and the way she had let her vanity dictate her actions. She realized that the more she had tried to change her outer appearance, the further she had drifted from the person she truly was. One evening, she stood before the mirror once again and decided it was time to let go of the potion and its power. She had seen the damage it had done, not just to her relationships, but to her sense of self. She wanted to be seen for who she truly was, not for the physical traits that were fleeting and superficial. Dorcas returned to Ya's cottage in the forest and met the old woman. "I see you have come for answers, child," Ya said softly, her eyes wise and full of understanding. "What is it you seek?" Dorcas paused, looking down at her hands. "I want to undo what I did," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I no longer want the beauty that isn't mine. I want to be myself again, the person I was before all of this." Ya nodded slowly, as if she had been expecting this moment. "True beauty comes from within, Dorcas. It is your heart that shines the brightest. Let go of the illusion, and you will find the peace you seek." With a deep breath, Dorcas handed Ya the vial of potion that had once transformed her hair. Ya took it gently, placing it on a stone altar, and with a quiet chant, she sealed the potion's power. As the liquid disappeared into the earth, Dorcas felt a strange sense of release, like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. When Dorcas returned to the village, something had changed. Her hair, which had once been long and beautiful, was now bald again, but to Dorcas it no longer mattered. She walked through the village with her head held high, and when she spotted Kofi in the distance, she waved at him, smiling. Kofi smiled warmly, the same smile that had always made her feel seen, no matter what her appearance was. "Dorcas," he greeted her. "It's good to see you again." "It's good to be seen, Kofi," she said softly, her voice filled with sincerity. "Thank you for helping me see the truth." As she continued on her way home, Dorcas could feel the stares from the villagers. The journey she had taken, from longing for beauty to discovering inner peace, had been long, but it had taught her one invaluable lesson. True beauty cannot be measured by what is on the outside, but by the love, kindness, and respect we carry within. Dorcas knew now that she was enough, just as she was. And with that knowledge, she walked forward, no longer seeking validation from anyone else. She had finally found the beauty that had always been inside her.